So welcome everybody. We are going to be talking about pie charts to planning using assessment data to enhance learning. My name is Liz Fields. I'm a member of our curriculum and professional development team here at Learning Beyond Paper. Learning Beyond is a digital curriculum for infants through pre-kindergarten created to be equitable and affordable. So all these professional development sessions are actually included and you can have access to them even during your free trial period. Christina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, of course. My name is Christina Demers, and I am also a member of the Curriculum and Professional Development team here at Learning Beyond Paper, and I'm excited to join you all today.
And I guess we forgot to share, but Christina and I have been in the early childhood world for over 20 years, and we have all been directors and teachers, and we really take all of our past experiences and pour our heart and soul into these professional development sessions to provide things, information to you so that you can take it back and use it yourself. So for today's agenda, we're going to do a mindset check-in. We're going to talk about representing our data visually. We're going to give you some technology tips. We're going to do some analyzing of data, identifying patterns and trends. We're also going to identify areas for growth in data sets, chart a course for learning, and you will be provided at the end of the session with a bunch of resources to help you dig further into this data. I like to start every session that we do with a mindset check, and this is a great time to take space and make space in the chat answering this question. What mindset are you in when you hear the word data? We know that, every situation, you may have a different mindset depending on the topic. A lot of you right now might have joined this session because you love data, but maybe the majority of you have joined this session because data is kind of scary to you, that your brain kind of automatically turns off when you hear the word data. And we really want you to work to keep that open mindset while we are spending this next hour together talking about data. So I just ran across this picture the other day on LinkedIn and it really resonated with me. I know we never like to hear the word failure, but I think that word is often associated with that fixed mindset. And if we believe that we can do something or we can't do something, then we also believe that we can fail at things. So rather than thinking that you failed, stopping your progress, you can use some of these ideas listed on the left to really help transition your mind to a growth mindset way of thinking when you're facing these challenges and talking about data. For example, viewing data as a way to celebrate the hard work, regardless of the outcome, right? Or setting a goal and realizing that it's just a stepping stone towards your goal, that it's not a setback. So take a minute to just scan these rewiring phrases and find one that speaks to you. Write it down, put it in a place that you'll see every day, and make it your daily affirmation, especially in those areas when we are talking about data. So this is a great visual for the journey of student data collection. You start right here at the tip of the pencil, collecting data, right? And then you do something with the data. You keep it on your computer, you file the papers away, something happens to it. And sometimes that's all that happens to data, but there's a lot more that should be done to complete the picture. We need to analyze that data, look for trends, strengths, and weaknesses, right? And once we've done that, we need to generate some insights from the data. How can we help the teachers, the children, the families that are in our care based on the data that we've collected? Then we need to do something with those insights, take action on them, make changes, and come back together with a feedback loop. We talk about feedback loops with children and redirecting them, but we need to let our data also provide that feedback loop to how we handle our instructional planning and decision making in the classroom. So this is a big question I'm going to ask. And again, take space and make space in the chat. But why do people always put data in graphs? Why do people always put data in graphs? Please take space and make space in the chat. Well, we watched this TED video about, oops, it went too far.
As Hans Rosling, the master, my master, said, let the data set change your mindset. And if that can do that, maybe it can also change your behavior. Take a look at this one. I'm a bit of a health nut. I love kind of like taking supplements and being fit, but I can never understand what's going on in terms of evidence. There's always conflicting evidence. Should I take vitamin C? Should we take in wheatgrass? So this is a visualization of all the evidence for nutritional supplements. This kind of diagram is called a balloon race. So the higher up the image, the more evidence there is for each supplement. And the bubbles correspond to popularity as regards to Google hits. So you can kind of immediately apprehend the relationship between efficacy and popularity. But you can also, if you grade the evidence, sort of do a worth it line. And so supplements above this line are worth investigating, but only for the conditions listed below. And then supplements below the line are perhaps not worth investigating. Now this image constitutes a huge amount of work. We scraped like 1,000 studies from PubMed, the biomedical database. And we compiled them and graded them all. And it was incredibly frustrating for me because I had a book of 250 visualizations to do for my book. And I spent a month doing this, and I'd only filled 2 pages. But what it points to is that visualizing information like this is a form of knowledge compression. It's a way of squeezing an enormous amount of information and understanding into a small space. And once you've curated that data, and once you clean that data, and once it's there, you can do cool stuff like this. So I converted this into an interactive app. So I can now generate this application online, this visualization online, and I can say, yeah, brilliant. So it spawns itself, and then I can say, well, just show me the stuff that affects heart health. So let's filter that out. So heart is filtered out, so I can see if I'm curious about that. I think, no, I don't want to take any synthetics. I just want to see plants and just show me herbs and plants. There we go, all the natural ingredients. Now this app is spawning itself from the data. The data is all stored in a Google Doc, and it's literally generating itself from that data. So the data is now alive. This is a living image, and I can update it in a second. New evidence comes out. I just change a row on a spreadsheet. Douche. Again, the image recreates itself. So it's cool. It's kind of living. But it kind of can go beyond data, and it can go beyond numbers. And I like to apply information visualization to ideas and concepts. This is a visualization of the political spectrum, an attempt for...
Yeah. Well, we're moving on. I guess our video cut out. Christina, did you see anything in the chat?
Yes, we had some good answers, Liz. So we had somebody say, puts numbers into visuals that are easily represented. To see the visual of collected information over time, to show growth and make future predictions.
Perfect. And again,
Yes.
I think the biggest point to hit home is let the data set change your mindset. So I'm going to turn it over to Christina to talk further about those data sets.
Thank you so much, Liz. So before we begin, I want you all to look at these questions in front of you and kind of keep them at the forefront of your mind as we're going in through some information. The next couple of slides I'm going to share with you is really just raw data collection. We collect data daily, right? We have children observations, teacher observations, class, so many things that we have to collect data on. So the first couple of slides is going to show you just some data that they've taken up on teachers and children. So we'll kind of go into that. And the questions that I want you to think about really for your schools is, how are the teachers at your school performing overall? Is this teacher or child meeting the expectations set out by the state? What strengths does this teacher or child exhibit? What opportunities for growth should you offer this teacher or child? And then, do the teachers in your school do better with one age group over another? And do the children in the classroom do better with one developmental domain over the other? So the first example of raw data that I am showing you, this is a sample of a infant and toddler teacher. This is teacher A. And teacher A has been observed over a course of 4 observations, and these are the developmental domains. So looking at the numbers of this teacher, can we easily tell and answer those questions that we talked about before? If you want to just kind of give us a little emoji in the chat, like a thumbs up, are you able to, looking at this observation, see where this teacher is performing overall? I see lots of thumbs up. Perfect. So yes, I agree. We can see, on the second observation, relational climate, this teacher scored a 7. So we could see where they're doing great. And maybe there's some areas of growth and that they need some support and help. This is teacher B, same thing, 4 developmental domains and an observation over 4 periods. Again, think of those questions. Are you able to answer those questions about teacher B? Lots of thumbs up, I see. Now we're moving into something a little bit more deeper, a little bit more developmental domains. This is a pre-K teacher. This is teacher C. And now we're seeing a lot more numbers, right? Although we can still kind of see where this teacher may need some help, where they're excelling. I see just a lot more numbers, a little more jumbled. And here's teacher D. So again, pre-K teacher, 4 observations in developmental domains. Again, take space and make space in the chat. Looking at those questions, are you able to answer them confidently? Are you able to tell us or answer what strengths this teacher has? Do you know where you can offer some better support? Still see more thumbs up. Perfect. So now that we've seen that raw data collection and we see that we've done every day, I'm going to show you some data that's visual. And then now we're going to ask ourselves these same questions. That's why we put them up again. So again, think about these questions. I'm going to show you what that raw data looks like when we put it into a chart and make it a little bit more visual appealing and maybe a little bit easier to read. So the first one that I'm going to show you is a stacked bar chart. Did it change, Liz?
You're actually, I think we forgot about the student data. So we were talking about teacher data and we had some student data there. So same
Sorry,
questions.
I jumped ahead.
Yeah, just trying to give you guys some context with child data or student data. And now we're going to talk about that data and what it looks like to be represented visually.
Perfect. Sorry about that, guys. So here's the first one that we have available. We have a stacked bar chart. So this is just a graphical representation of data where there's obviously multiple bars and they're placed on top of one another to show the total amount of data broken down into subcategories. So this was teacher A and the developmental domains over the 4 periods of observation. So I want you to ask yourself, are you able to easily see where this teacher has shown growth or where there's a little bit more chance for support? Do you feel that it is easier to read this than it was those typical charts that I showed you earlier? And you could do that by giving me a thumbs up in the chat.
Share any comments you have about this graph in the chat as well.
Absolutely. So you might want to use a stacked bar chart when you're comparing parts to a whole, right? Or when you're tracking those changes over time, when you're seeing what it was in the beginning of the observation 1, and now we're in observation 4. What kind of growth have you seen? What kind of patterns have you seen? So this would definitely highlight multiple categories or visualize surveys. The next one that we have is one of my favorites, actually. This is our row chart. So again, now we're looking at teacher B. That was the first information and numbers that I gave you before prior. And then this is a row chart. So a row chart is often referred to as a horizontal bar chart. So it displays data as horizontal bars, obviously, and it goes along the y-axis. So obviously the length of each bar is corresponding to its value. So again, thinking about those questions that we've shown you before, are you able to answer those more confidently using something like this? Row charts are really good to use when you're really looking at large data sets. Or if you're ranking or ordering information, highlighting differences in data, or visualizing survey results. So this would be a great opportunity to use something like a row chart. Some more thumbs up. That's great. The next chart that I wanted to show you as well, now this moving into child level assessment data, which I did not show you originally, but this is giving you all the children. It's 5 children, and then you can see that they each have their observations and their developmental domains scored with the points. So looking at something like this, are you able to see, especially in your classroom, where children are excelling, where they might need some more support, what we can do and what we can bring to the classrooms to help children obviously be and succeed in their, within their classrooms. The next one is called the tree map chart. Definitely not one of my favorites, but it's
I love
interesting.
this chart.
It's interesting to learn how it's used, which I think was pretty great. So it's a visualization that displays data in a hierarchy as a set of kind of nested rectangles. So you can see the rectangles, and each rectangle has an area proportionate to a specific numerical value. So the higher the volume, the bigger the rectangle gets, right? So emotional support domain for teacher D, she's obviously excelling in that. And then as you can see, that rectangle for instructional support is a little bit smaller. So now we know that teacher D really needs some more help and maybe support with instructional support. So you might use this tree map chart to compare proportions. You can highlight patterns and outliers, and it also will help you visualize or interpret your data. Tree maps display data in a compact and visually appealing way. So the next one seems to be a favorite for everybody. This is our typical pie chart. Always reminds me of school. So a pie chart is a circular statistical graphical graphic, and it's divided into slices. And it really shows you each slice is a numerical proportion of that pie. So here you can easily read the data for that child in period 1 and see where they were excelling. And obviously the smaller portions of the pie is where you would offer that child support. So you would use a pie chart if you wanted to illustrate parts of a whole, if you wanted to understand proportions, or just simplify data and enhance understanding of the data you're collecting. Somebody said they love pie chart. I love pie charts too.
I see lots of I love bar charts. So we did have somebody say they like the horizontal bar chart as well. This is
Great.
another one of my favorites here.
Not for me. But it is really, again, really interesting, kind of like the tree map chart. This is a packed circles chart. So it's also known as a circles packing or a bubble chart. And it again displays your data, but it's using circles. And then the circles are different sizes, and they could possibly be different colors. Each circle represents a data point, and its size is proportional to a specific numerical value, such as quantity or frequency. So the larger circles can encompass smaller circles, and that represents different levels of the data structure. So from broad categories to more detailed subcategories. You might use this to visualize complex data or compare data. So the pack circles will highlight general data trends, but they really won't provide you with kind of detailed analysis. So I've shown you just a few different ways to show that raw data and represent it in a more visually exciting way. So now that we have done that and you've seen the different options that you have, do you feel that now you can answer these questions, be it about the teachers in your school, the children in your school? Are you able to answer these questions now with a little bit more confidence? How we've given you an opportunity to kind of see how you can collect that data and do more comparisons, feeling more confident about your answers?
You see lots of thumbs up and clapping. And a yes in the
Fabulous.
chat.
Perfect. So now we are going to jump over to some technology tips. And I will hand it back over to Liz.
Perfect. So let's talk about what tools are available to help you really create these visual representations of your data. So again, I'm going to ask you to take space and make space in the chat. What do you use to create visual representations of your data? Here are some computer programs that you all might be familiar with and you may be using. Of course, there's Microsoft Excel, and that's the spreadsheet program, and it allows you to format, organize, and calculate data. Google Sheets does something similar. There's also a computer program called LiveGap Charts, and it's a free online tool that allows you to create and share charts. There is Infogram, same thing, web-based platform for creating and sharing data visualizations. And then Visme is also a tool for creating and sharing and storing visual material. So what tools are you using personally? I know I, of course, was an Excel and Google Sheets user, but I had to teach myself quite a lot of things to really get the graphs that I wanted, and those pivot tables and all those things. And so I've actually found another tool to use, and we're going to show you that in just a minute here.
Most everybody is using Excel and Google. Sorry, Liz. Most
No,
everybody's
you're
saying
good.
Excel and Google Sheets,
Google.
and actually, yeah, and one
Awesome.
infogram.
I can't wait to show you all infograms because that's what we're going to do. But there are some important things to do before you start graphing your data. So I want to share these tips with you. The first thing that you need to do is really organize your raw data and make sure that all the data that you want to review is in one place. So oftentimes we have several printouts for children or teachers, or you have different systems where all the data is being collected. And if you really want to analyze all of that data, you need to make sure that you have it all put together. So writing it all on one piece of paper, typing it all in one chart, clipping all the reports together so that you're prepared to sit down and really look through the data. Then you need to select a focus. You can't focus on everything all at once, just like your jobs, your classrooms, all of those things. You can't do everything all at once. So you got to pick one place to start, really either focusing on teacher data or student data. And then you're going to start with what's right in front of you, that current data, and work your way to past data and predicting what's going to happen in the future. You want to make sure that when you're entering your data, if you're transferring it from paper to a spreadsheet, so to speak, that you limit your distractions and you're very detail oriented. So really making sure you're highlighting or marking on your paper copies, finding a friend to help you double check your entries. Because if you enter the data wrong, then you're going to make decisions from your data that are wrong. So that accuracy of your data is critical to impacting how you move forward. And then the last thing that you're going to do is select a chart type. As Christina showed you all those different chart types, every chart tells a different story. So you really want to explore all of your chart options and decide which one you want to select. And sometimes it's necessary to kind of separate your data and use different charts for different sets of data. So Infogram is the one website that I would really like to show you. This is Infogram. It's infogram.com. And it's as easy as this. I created an account and I am going to go here to create a new team template, and I want to create a chart. And then I can pick whatever chart I'd like to create. I saw a lot of people say that they wanted a pie chart. They liked pie charts. So I'm going to give my chart a title. Oops. And it says I have too many. So we're going to go back home. And I have entered this one. So you're going to give your chart a title, and then you're going to enter your data in there. So I can click right here on the graph, and I can edit my data. And I literally just dropped in the class scores for my infant, 2s, 3s, and 4s teachers. And it generated this chart right from that data that I put in there. Just typed it right in the Excel sheet. But you know what? The stacked bar chart isn't telling the story that I want to tell. So I can go over here and I can select to see a pie chart. And now I have a quick picture about how my teachers have scored. for class different ways. So again, super easy to use. You can't go wrong because the system generates the graphs for you. And if you put the data in wrong, it won't make a graph, and you just adjust your data and go from there. So again, having your data in a visual manner really helps you identify patterns and trends in data. And when you look at those graphs, you need to ask yourself, what is your data telling you? And these are some of the best reflective questions to ask yourself. Is there anywhere in the data where minimum expectations were not met? How has the data changed over time? Are there any data points that stood out to you as you were graphing the data and entering the data? Does the data look different for different teachers or different age groups? Do you implement any changes? Did you implement changes? And did those changes impact your data? And what do you expect the next set of data points to be, right? Data is a predictable pattern. So you should be able to project out what your next class observation will look like, or what the next milestone that the children are hitting in their developmental data is, because you have that in a visual way. I keep this by my computer when I'm graphing because, again, I want to ask myself, what are the trends in data showing me? So this is just a quick chart that shows you, is the data stable, increasing, decreasing, right? Increasing and then decreasing. So I have this printed right next to my computer so I can continually reflect on what my data looks like based off of these lines, especially if I have things in a line graph. And then we can start to see these graphs where we've looked at those reflective questions. Here, I can see one teacher's data over all of the cycles, and I can see where the teacher has made great growth and where the teacher maybe has lost some momentum with things that are happening. If I look at it in a line graph, again, it tells another story. So this is class data, and we're looking at different dimensions within the domain. So overall, the domain may have looked great, but if I look at these different dimensions, I've got to ask myself, what happened here, right? Between the first cycle and the fourth cycle, something changed. But they've maintained positive climate. If I look at this data here, again, the domains and the dimensions, maybe this looked great individually, but I look at the data overall, and this teacher has had consistent productivity, but we've been all over the place with behavior management. We've been all over the place with instructional learning formats. And as a director, as a teacher, what can I do to stabilize my data? Because I'm going up and down and all over the place when I really look at my numbers. Again, concept development, quality of feedback, like everything was going up, language modeling dropped down. So why is that? And what's going on? But I wouldn't have those data insights if I hadn't put my data into a graphical representation and started reflecting on what was there. We're going to talk now about identifying areas for growth and really asking yourself, is your goal within reach? Again, letting your data set change your mindset is important, but having that goal set and working to reach it is also important. So one way to know if your goal is within reach is to compare each teacher's or child's data to the expected targets. So if I look here at class B, for a class assessment, the expected target is 7. So when I am looking at teacher B's class cycles, I can actually see that as we got to cycle 4, things shifted significantly. So when I compare that cycle over cycle, something is missing. The teacher lost some sort of flow in what was happening. Maybe the teacher got a different class when we were, doing different class assessments. So I need to be able to better understand where they started and where they ended. I want to compare the data between teachers or children. So looking at the individual data versus the group data. What does that look like? Well, let's look at, again, this class assessment for relational or positive climate. I thought everybody was doing great, but if I look at each of my teacher scores over these 4 cycles, I can actually identify that teacher D has maintained a stable relational and positive climate. So then how can I use those strengths of teacher D to support the other teachers that over the course of the year are losing points or losing the ability to maintain that relational and positive climate in their classroom, right? Again, take space and make space in the chat as you also are looking and evaluating this data with us. The other thing you need to do is evaluate the overall growth trajectory of the individual teacher or child. So let's look at this. Ooh, this is my young toddler teacher, and I'm looking at early language support, and I see that this language support has not gone so great over the course of the year. Why is that? Did my young toddler start talking, and so the teacher stopped talking and lost the support that she was originally, or he was originally giving these children as they started their 1-year-old year with them? Again, this happened in the 2-year-old room too. So if I'm this director and I'm looking at the 1-year-old room and the 2-year-old room, then I need to have continued conversations about language modeling, that just because children are continuing to speak doesn't mean teachers are talking less, that we need to be more specific with our language and conversations. But I might have missed that if I hadn't have put my data in a graph. It's really important to correlate your data with changes in the learning environment. So if I look at this graph, I'm like, oh, right? Without any context, we've got some problems here. However, if I shared with you that these 2 assessments were one teacher, and that teacher went on maternity leave, and these 2 assessments were with a replacement teacher, then I have context to the data. And it's important that you would note that on your graphs or in your comments so that you have that point of reference. Also, when you're analyzing data, you need to consider external factors. So again, what does that look like? If we're talking here language modeling and external factors, did the children switch in the classroom, right? Again, the children are talking more, the teacher is talking less. What all of a sudden made quality of feedback go up and concept development go up? Oh, you know what? We were working on a unit that was of children's interest. And so children were talking amongst themselves, which made the quality of feedback go up and the concept development go up, but the teacher really took a back seat because this was day 2 of the project or day 3 of the project. And so the language modeling went down. So again, making sure that you understand the total picture of the data and all of the factors that affect it, and that you make comments and write those things down is the best way to plan for your course of action. All right, Christina, I'm going to turn it back over to you to talk about charting a course for learning.
Perfect. Oop. So Liz just shared some great examples, and we are going to share a quick video with you. I think we have about 10 more minutes. So while you're watching this video, if you guys want to add it to the chat, we want to know, what new insights do you have after going through?
Well, we want to be sure that we acknowledge what I hear from teachers, administrators, parents everywhere is we're doing way too much testing. We're spending so much time, so much money, so much effort in collecting data that we can't use. So one of the things I try to do with people around that is let's shut down those computers and shrink wrap back all those assessments and put them back on the shelf and go back to the questions that we need to be answered. This afternoon, I'm going to sit with these 5, 6, 8, 12 kids. What I need to know right now is which one of them might need some extra help. That's kind of the threshold question. Which one of them? Because if they don't need help, I can do different things with them. If they need help, if they're behind 3, 5 years, I need to treat my afternoon different. I mean, that imminent kind of information. But if we drive it by questions, first question, which of my students across the ages might need some help? The second question is, okay, I found one who might need some help. What kind of help do they need? And then looking for the tools that give us the quickest but most trustworthy information that can inform that. I can use that along with the knowledge of standards and foundational skills to plan something to do literally an hour from now or this afternoon. Then my next driving question for data is, did it work? I did the very best I know how to do. I was using good tools. I was using strategies. These kids all got it. This one didn't. I need to bravely ask that question, did my instruction work? And then bravely and conscientiously figure out what to do differently for this student. So the data I want teachers to have is data that answers critically important questions as quickly and accurately as possible, and then make sure through professional development that they know how to interpret that data and then use it for instruction. That symbiotic relationship needs to be happening all the time.
Perfect.
Oop, forgot resources. Oh, we're skipping around here. Here we go. So again, you're going to get a handout after the presentation that will give you resources that will provide you additional tools to help you create visual representations of your data. If you are just new to looking at data, there's some resources to help you dip your toes in the water and understand how to use that data. And if you've really been using data for a long time, then there are some resources for you as well that help you really take a critical look at the data and analyze that data in a way to make total impacts in your centers, with your teachers, with your children, with your families. And we just wanted to share again information about Learning Beyond Paper. If you would like more information about it, you will be able to have the opportunity, or we will reach out to you, have the opportunity to reach out to you and share more about our digital curriculum. And I'm sure we have some time for question and answer. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can take time for questions and answers and anything else that needs to be happening.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you both so much. This has been like a really in-depth presentation about all the different ways that data can be useful, especially in centers, but even outside of it. I mean, these are also applicable. So if anyone has any questions for our presenters, please put them in the chat, or if you'd like to speak, feel free to raise your hand and I'll give you permission to speak as well. I do see in the chat, Victory. Yes, there is a live raffle. I will be choosing 2 random winners for a $50 Amazon gift card at the end of our session. I just want to make sure that anyone who has questions about today's session has a chance to run them by our presenters. So we've got like a good 10 minutes to go over anything, if anyone has anything they'd like to say.
And if they don't, I can share some of those resources too out with the group, because there's some really great resources.
Yeah.
If you want to go ahead and do that, Liz, and I'll just
Okay. Yeah. Let me hold on one second. Christina, you want to unhide that slide for me? Is it back in our presentation? Let me get back to it. I hit it, right? Now I can't find it again. I've got it.
Did you find it?
I did. Okay. Here we go. So one of the great places to look for resources is the Head Start website. And even though you might not be a Head Start center, they have fantastic resources applicable to everything. So this Head Start resource is a 15-minute video on using assessment data to inform teaching and adjust teaching practices, and it includes tips and tools for supervisors and for teachers. And then this resource here, New America, is a blog post by Nicole Sue, and she outlines how data is collected, analyzed, and shared at the state level to improve pre-K outcomes. So again, as we advocate for early learning and pre-kindergarten outcomes, understanding how all of our data that we collect, that kindergarten readiness data and the class data, impacts and improves things at the state level is really important. 4C for Children is a resource that has a short 6-minute video that outlines how to collect child data for planning purposes. So these are great videos and resources to use with your staff as you begin to move that needle and have conversations about data collection and using data to empower instruction. If you want to dig really deep into your child developmental outcomes data, then the Dallas Independent School District has a data analysis guiding question document. We use many of these guiding questions in our presentation today, but there's a whole grid of guiding questions that can really bring a complexity to the data. The Clark County School District link also gives you detailed documents that walk you through step-by-step through the data analysis process and includes reflective questions. The Innovare resource provides you with some ideas to track child data. It gives you 4 steps that you can go through to plan for data collection, because sometimes data collection doesn't just happen. It has to be part of your purposeful planning in your center and in your classrooms. And then the final resource is a Renaissance Learning blog, and it talks about how to identify patterns of need and determine what might be causing child deficits. So all of these resources are live linked in the document that was put in the chat for you. So you're able to really better understand, and again, use these resources with teachers, with colleagues, to begin those discussions around data and empowering that use of data to make decisions.